Yo, what's up? This is Toru, and in a way, so are you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a music producer, artist, and entrepreneur. I make music for that space between the dance floor and the bedroom, which has been streamed millions of times and been licensed by brands big and small, including companies like Apple. I believe that regardless of what you produce, whether it be music, art, physical goods, or even spreadsheets, you have a process, whether you know it or not. To explore this further, I created the ProducerHead Podcast. ProducerHead is a place to have conversations with other producers about their experience and process to share what works and what doesn't, to help each of us learn and improve our own processes along the way. Today's guest is Jacuzzi Jefferson, a producer, engineer, and professor based in Brooklyn, New York. Some credits are as follows. As a producer, he's worked with Raekwon and Kool AD. He's engineered for 50 Cent, Julez, Santana, and Trey Songz. He even teaches digital music at Hostos Community College in New York City. In this conversation, we cover so many topics, but here are a few. The importance of listening to music outside of your comfort zone, release strategies in a digital world of playlists and algorithms, expanding your creative expression through multiple aliases, working with labels, the value of working for free, and development of foundational skills for producers. After all, he is a professor. Straight up, I'm stoked to share this conversation with you. Aside from being talented and full of useful information, Jacuzzi Jefferson is simply a good dude, and I'm grateful to know him. I learned things in this conversation that have stayed with me and expect the same will happen for you. By the way, in case you missed it, Jacuzzi Jefferson and I released a song called Lift Off with Etymology Records. It's out now and available on all streaming platforms. Okay, without further ado, episode 1 of ProducerHead with Jacuzzi Jefferson begins now. Let's get into it. Jacuzzi Jefferson, thank you for being here.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
We'll just jump right in because I think, man, what's super cool about I think if anybody checks out your music or any of what you're doing online, it's pretty clear immediately that you've worked with a bunch of people, and it includes people across different genres and different kind of talents, like vocalists, instrumentalists. It includes like people like Raekwon, and as well as people like Kool AD, and then people that are kind of associated with like kind of maybe more chill hop stuff, like Chris Missouri and Kyle McAvoy and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it'd be really cool to just share the way that you think about collaboration, how you source collaboration, how you assess like what's a good fit for collaboration, and so on.
Well, so some of the producer stuff is just like the people around, so I was working at a recording studio as an engineer. And so I would make music with the other, even when I was like an intern or a general assistant, just making beats with the people who were also interns and general assistants. And like when I was an intern, we used to do 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Oh, wow.
Like unpaid too. And then, once 7 p.m. hit, it wasn't like a rush to go home. It was like, that's when we all chilled. We like make beats, and like they would let us slide in into the studio if there wasn't anything booked. We'd get these like bumpable sessions. Yeah. So we were just like always around and just like making beats because it was fun to make beats. And my buddy would mix them for free because he liked mixing, and then my friend would master them for free because he just won a Grammy like a couple weeks ago. Like this, he's like the real deal, But we were just like doing it because it was fun. So I think just surrounding yourself with people like that is a good first step, where people are maybe not focused on getting paid or making money off of it or turning it into a product, or like I'm down to do it, but here's my rate. That you can kind of like put some pressure on that kind of stuff. So if you have people around you that you can just kind of jam on, I think that's a good first step. If you are looking to level up, you probably are going to have to pay somebody's rate, which like, you want somebody to pay your rate. So it's like, it's not a bad thing. The stuff with like Chill Hop and those guys, a lot of that was through Kyle. So Kyle was hosting these like producer boot camp type things, and people would go up to Woodstock and just stay for like a week. And so I play in a group. Kyle had DM'd us, and he's like, "Hey, I just came across your music and I think it's cool. Like, do you want to chat?" And it's like, you get DMs like that, and you kind of like get a feel for like which ones are real and which ones aren't. And so it was like, he looked him up, and I was like, his music was cool. So I was like, all right, let's hop on the phone. And we chatted, and he's like, I'm doing this thing like next week. Do you guys want to come? And you know what I mean? So it was just like very fast. And then I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then when he sent the email, I looked at the other people on the email list, and it was like a bunch of people I recognize, like Oat Mellow and cartoons and like all these people who are nasty. So I was like,
yeah,
hell yeah. I mean, and I knew cartoons through somebody else, and he ended up not even being there. But so I was like, all right, I'll know one person,
yeah,
But then when we went, it was like Ian Ewing and Chris Maswera and like, all these people that like are pretty dope. And I knew of them, G Mills. It was just like very laid back, very chill. Everybody was just down to collaborate. Bureaucratic was there too. And you just people who like kind of were in a similar circle, but a level higher than, at least what I felt, a level higher than what I was doing.
yeah.
But yeah, everybody was just kind of down to like collab and just hang. And sometimes people would be like, I'm not even making beats today. Like I'm just going on a hike and, just real good vibe kind of stuff. But yeah, that's how it kind of quickly like was kind of introduced to a lot of those people.
Wow, that's really dope. I mean, so when I hear you kind of say all this, man, it makes me think about, the importance of putting yourself out there in multiple ways, right? Like you need to have music out there so that people even have the chance to find you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like, there's this pushback because Spotify like doesn't pay what it should pay, and I agree, it pays like, half a penny per stream, something like that. But Spotify is the reason why, my music gets put in front of so many people, and like, I'm sure Kyle probably found it on Spotify. I mean, he's good at like keeping his ear to the ground, and he's always like looking for new things. And, he's just like a good tastemaker guy, but, but still, that's probably where he found it, Discover Weekly or something like that. So I think like, yeah, like you just got to do it, and be on Bandcamp and be on Spotify and play shows if you can play shows. And, you should do the social media stuff. I'm not good at that, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of never know where like the next thing is going to come from,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. So as you're collaborating, to what extent does your mindset change or your process change as you move from working kind of as a solo producer or artist to working with another artist or group of artists even?
I don't know. I mean, even when I'm doing like solo stuff, I'm still looping in people, like I'm wrapping up an album now, and I was just looking at the track list, and none of the songs are just me, so even though it's like my album, I'm kind of like bringing people in. So that, I think it's just ultimately like deciding when it's done, or who to loop in, or like what the song is called, or the artwork, or how it's getting promoted, or video, like that kind of stuff feels very different for solo work. Cause like the process is still pretty collaborative.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like the music making process.
And then I guess the last part is, I guess maybe it's sort of either like compartmentalization or collaboration with yourself, because you have all these other aliases.
Yeah.
And so maybe you want to talk a little bit about those and kind of, what those do for you, artistically and functionally, maybe.
Yeah. So, what I kind of learned about that approach at one of these producer camps in Woodstock. Some of the guys, I mean, I don't know if their aliases are like secrets, so I don't name names, but, I was chatting with somebody and they're like, yeah, I put out my music, but then I also have this alias where I put out like solo piano stuff. And then they're like, and I have this other alias where I put out like ambient music. And at the time, like I was so anti that idea, it's like, why would you do that? Like, why not put all your efforts towards building up the brand and then people blah, blah, blah. And then as the algorithm, like the Spotify algorithm starts to work for you, you realize like it actually makes a lot of sense to keep them separate, And these guys, like some of the like chill beats type stuff, like even though it's sometimes like very simple, like the progressions and the loops, like they're all nasty. They're like such nasty musicians. And so like they're maybe intentionally kind of, I don't want to say dumbing it down, but like they're not really showing you what they fully could do, So it's just like tastefully like digestible, I'd say. Yeah. And so like for some of these guys to just like sit at the piano and just like write a bunch of solo stuff for like a sleep playlist, would take them like no time at all. So you might as well do that. So if you're thinking playlist, right, the more simple kind of backgroundy it is, the easier it is to playlist on those types of playlists, and they get a ton of streams. which is cool, right? Because then your numbers go up. But then when you go to your page, it's like, that's going to be your number one song because it got the most plays. So then when somebody says like, oh, let me check out so-and-so's music, the number one song is this like kind of sleepy background song because it's got like 20 million streams.
Right.
You know, you might be like, well, that's not really like my artistic statement. Like, that's not what I'm fully capable of. I don't want you to check out that one song and be like, well, that's what they do. So I think it does make sense. And then if you're like putting both things out under the same name, like once you teach the algorithm, like put me on every like sleep playlist.
Sure.
And then your next album's like a house album, you're going to mess up any kind of momentum with the algorithm, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense to just like have these different outlets for different styles, if that's your approach. So like when I do Jacuzzi, it's like that stuff doesn't all sound the same, but that's like my artistic statement. So sometimes it's kind of housey, sometimes it's kind of hip hop or indie or like, but it's like whatever. That's just like what I'm putting out. And so like I want people to know like this is what I'm into. But when I do something like, you know, I got Lake Sanford is my like kind of chill alias. And so it's stuff, and you know, it's not like throwaway. It's not stuff that I think is whack. It's just, it's very chill. And so I want that to just kind of be over there. And it's not a secret, you know, I'm not like pretending it's not me, but yeah, I'm like on board with the alias now. Now I want to have like 10 of them, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I mean, I think like the medium always impacts kind of the way that we make things, no matter like kind of what the product is. But it's really interesting to think about it in creating sort of additional aliases or personalities or artist kind of personas along the way, because it's a really strong impact, you know, beyond just like kind of how long a song is or the instrumentation or the way they package it. So, and I really like,
I think you like, you're 100% right. I was just like, you know, agreeing that it's the medium is the thing that's like dictating that this makes sense.
So interesting. But I really like what you said about artistic statement.
Like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, man. You're good. Sorry.
Also, I was just gonna say the like in terms of release schedules, you know, like the way like to pitch for Spotify for artists, for their editorials, they want, you know, like at least 2 weeks. Some people say do a couple weeks. So, and you can only pitch one thing at a time. So if I drop one song, I gotta wait a couple weeks to pitch the next one. You know, and because it's like the same, like you said, like the medium is driving it, it's like people are consuming stuff via playlists, right? So if I drop a 10-track album, I can pitch one of those songs to be considered for editorial. But if instead I had done 10 singles, I could have pitched all 10 of those. But then I have to wait 2 or 3 weeks in between, and now we're talking about, you know, 20 to 30 weeks of, you know, like of releases. So then it's like, well, now I'm taking up like all this time on these 10 songs. But if you have Alias, you can be pitching to different projects simultaneously. You know what I mean? Like, it can.
No, that's a really interesting point in terms of like, it can sort of the way that this, because what it sounds like you're describing is really like the way that Spotify, for instance, is set up, that you're sort of limited in what and how you can release in a certain way. And so that having multiple outlets, you can give yourself the opportunity to release it more frequently and have it all out there sooner rather than later. And I guess, you know, now that we're on the streaming, it made me think that, you know, I guess, especially given it like kind of in the beat scene, how there's sort of been this like emergence of labels. So I guess if you could speak on maybe your experiences working with labels and your opinion on like maybe the importance of working with them and succeeding as an artist. And maybe if you're somebody who's never released with the label, how would you suggest somebody go about sourcing that opportunity, you know, for the first time and making that leap?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I have a good answer, but when I started doing more solo stuff, I tested out like a couple labels, and I think, I mean, it depends on what kind of label. If you're like a beats producer looking for a beats label, I think the thing you're probably looking for is like access to a big playlist, you know, or if it's like a local scene, like if you have a beat scene in your city, like, is there a big label that's kind of connected to everybody? Because then networking and shows and all that stuff could be included with being affiliated, you know? So like if they're putting together a show and it's like, well, I might as well hit up, you know, these people that release with us, like then it makes sense. But if they don't have either one of those things, you know, then like why give up a percentage of what you're doing, you know? And they're just gonna pitch you, you know, and like you could pitch yourself. And everybody kind of like, I'm sure like any producer gets like the same 100 emails all day long that are like, we'll get you on this Spotify such and such. And like everybody claims to do the same thing. It's hard to tell. Like a lot of it seems like kind of fake, kind of scammy. But you know, I've put out things through DistroKid and then pitched it through Spotify for Artists, and then it got editorial. So it's like you don't need any of that. You know what I mean? You just need the luck of like the right person coming across your submission that digs it and says, okay, you know. It's weird because that's like the gatekeepers now. You know, it used to be labels and radio stations and MTV, BET, but now it's just like some person who works at Spotify like saying yes. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And then it can kind of skyrocket. But even just like organic growth. So like getting your friends to stream your song, I think can teach the algorithm that people like this song. You know what I mean? Or if like your friends are adding your song to like a playlist that has Lilo and Madlib and Katra, and then the algorithm is like, hey, this song actually belongs next to Flylo and Madlib and Katra, you know. And I think, I mean, I'm kind of guessing, right? I feel like everybody's guessing and it's constantly changing, but I think you can kind of teach the algorithm like where it belongs and who digs it and do they save it, you know what I mean? So like saving a song, I think is pretty helpful, you know. When all you're asking people to do is just like add it to a playlist and then play the playlist. You know, it's not even money. It's not like, will you come to my show? Will you buy my CD? It's just like, will you click on this thing and like, you know, like let it play for 2 minutes? No, it's such a small ask, but that's what we're like, you know. And one time I showed my mom like some music on Spotify, and she clicked on it, and then she like paused it. She's like, all right, well, I'll check it out later. I was like, Mom, no, like you just taught the algorithm that like people pause it after 10 seconds, and you know what I mean? But those they're like incredibly supportive. Shout out to my folks. And my sister too, like same thing. Like one time I dropped a song and my sister streamed it like 30 times in a row or something. And I was like, that you shouldn't do that. That's probably bad for your mental health. But yeah, actually, you know what? The one that she streamed like a million times in a row ended up getting on Lo-Fi Beats, which like, you know, is like the biggest playlist for that kind of stuff, and then got, you know, 2 million plays. And so it's like, who knows? Like maybe that kind of got the ball rolling. You know what I mean? You never really know like what did it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it all helps,
so
you know.
Shout out to her too.
Yeah, that's what's up. Shout out to the family of Jacuzzi. Yeah, man. With that, actually, with that, I'm actually, so I think that's a nice place to kind of go into. I'm curious about sort of, you know, like the origin story of your music, your interest in music, and how you get to be somebody who not only just makes music, but to make it, you know, with intention. And like you said, to think about, I really like what you said before about having kind of an artist statement. I think, you know, that intentionality and all of that. So I'm curious about the road to that, you know, and how you cultivated that.
I like don't remember the very beginning. I mean, we always had a piano in our house. Like I have a picture of me as a kid, like, you know, reaching up to like get the piano keys. So like it just was always around. And I got lessons, you know, when I was a kid, but I like, you know, I wasn't playing stuff that I was like super excited about. I was playing like My Heart Will Go On, you know, Celine
It's a classic, yeah.
And like it's a classic, but you know, when you're like a young boy, it's like I don't know that that's like what I really wanted to be playing. And playing like La Bamba and stuff like that, you know. So it's like it's cool, but so then I wanted to play guitar because I think I was listening to a lot of guitar based music, like pop punk and stuff like that. And then my folks got me a lesson, you know, shout out to my folks again, you know, just like getting lessons for piano and getting lessons on guitar. And even like that though, I was playing on acoustic guitar and some like Hawaiian songs and stuff. I was in Hawaii at the time.
Okay.
And then I was like, this is cool, but like it's still not, you know, Blink-182 and that kind of stuff. So then just like staying up late, reading guitar tabs, you know, off the internet.
Yeah. How old were you when you started playing guitar?
I don't know. I would guess maybe 13-ish, something like that. I tried a lot of things, and I tried different sports and stuff, and and drawing and painting classes, and just like all kinds of things. So it's just like music was one of those things.
Yeah, and then that bridge into going from like somebody who plays guitar and some piano, how did you make that transition into production and engineering?
Well, I always like whatever I was into, I like wanted to do it myself. You know what I mean? Like, like when I was into wrestling, it's like I wanted to have like wrestling events in the basement and like that kind of stuff. So it's like,
interesting.
And when I was into basketball, I was like, I wanted to play basketball, and like, so when I was into music, it's like I want to like record my own stuff. So we got music studio or something like that. Audio studio. It's like some CD that we bought at Circuit City.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That's dope.
Yeah.
And
CD-ROM.
CD-ROM, and then got a program. And I used to use just like, like the little mic. Sometimes
absolutely.
would be in an old computer. I would record with that, and then got like a better mic, and then eventually got an interface. And so I just kind of was like slowly kind of like, how can I do this myself, but a little better? And not really knowing what anything was, just kind of fumbling through it. Like I used to play in like a band, and we just made like silly songs, and we would record music like with the computer mic.
Wow.
And like put it near the drums and record the drums and record the so it's just like chipping away on quality. I made beats with like Reason. I used Reason 4 back in the day.
Wow.
And I used Fruity Loops. Somebody gave me like on a CD. I think he sold it to me for like $10. Somebody in my class. This was probably like 2005, 2006, something like that.
Wow.
So just installing Fruity Loops and making beats, and then like Reason, and then GarageBand, and then and then Pro Tools, and kind of kept chipping away. And then eventually like I went to Villanova University and studied audio production as a concentration within communication.
Yeah.
But then started taking like Pro Tools classes, and and then it was on,
And then somehow you landed in that studio that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So I graduated from Villanova, and then I went to a school called the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Arizona.
Cool.
And that's just like a certification school for audio engineering. And that's like when I was like really taking school. I mean, I did well in school, but like that's when I was like really taking it serious, because I was like, if I'm going to be in Arizona, I don't know anybody, you know what I mean? I'm like far away from home. Like I'm going to crush it, like I just like had this motivation of like, if I'm here, then I want to do it right. And did like really well, learned a lot. And that was a cool school because it was open 24 hours. So like we would have class from, I forget, I think I was in the morning class. So maybe like 10 to 2 or 3, something like that. And then you just like have the day off, from then until 10 o'clock the next day, there's nothing you have to do. So we would just like, and you could book time and be there all night long if you want. So really just kind of getting chops up and getting comfortable on like different consoles and, different mic placements. And
that's really cool, man. I mean, it sounds like that really kind of prepared you for that studio environment that you eventually found yourself in. So even from like the way that the timing of the schedule is, and so that you're pretty accustomed to like, 10 to like 5, I can work, and get stuff done. And then I still have the energy and like the interest to keep going, and work with other people. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then once I started like interning, man, those are some like super late nights. If you work, so we'd work. So when I was like an intern in New York, 10 to 7, but then they would say like, so-and-so's coming tonight. It might be like a big rapper or singer. And, do you want to be a runner or do you want to be an assistant? And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's why I just worked for free all day, is for that opportunity to be in the room with so-and-so. So,
sure.
So you say yes. And then those sessions go till however late they go. And my like personal cutoff would be like, if I'm here till 3 a.m., I'm just going to sleep here.
Yeah.
And so then I would like sleep at the studio, wake up at 9, go to Dwayne Reed, buy like a toothbrush, and then start working at 10, because it's like, it doesn't make sense to be like 3 a.m., catch a train back to Brooklyn. At the time too, like I was one stop away. So it was the last stop in Manhattan, and I would take it to the first stop in Brooklyn. So it's like, it's really just one stop, but you got to cross over boroughs. But once I got off, then I had a mile walk home, which like in the summertime when you're chilling is fine. But when it's 3, 4 a.m., and it's raining and it's like, man, I got to walk a mile. So yeah, sometimes I just sleep at the studio and then do it the next day. Yeah, some crazy. And like a lot of rappers, like they, want to come in at 10 p.m. and work till 4, 5, 6 a.m., which is cool, if you're on like rock star schedule. But
yeah,
when you got to like work the next day, then it can be a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I think
but I loved it though, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds so cool, man. And so, I mean, now, you're actually, you've so much formal education and, in addition to all the time you just spent on your own in the studio, practicing and working with other people. And now it's come full circle. Now you're a professor yourself and you teach digital music. And so I'm curious about how you approach that with all the experience that you have in different kind of formal environments. And also, you describe, man, like so much of, I would say like part of the reason you've been so successful is because you know how to value learning opportunities and general opportunities aside from what they can pay you monetarily in the moment. And so I would say like, how do you pass that on and help people develop the skills to kind of understand and appreciate, value that maybe doesn't feel like instant gratification or come in the moment and doesn't pay you right away?
Well, it's tough. And it's a good question. It's because values change. I think the relationship with internships has already changed in the last, 10 years that we're talking about. I don't know that you're allowed to do all the things that were done before. And I think Gen Zs, they value their time in a way that's like a little different, where they're not down to kind of do stuff that isn't fair. But also it's like you have to acknowledge that it's like, there's privilege in that, in working for free.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the ability to work for free. Not everybody can do that. Or you can only do some days, but not other days. Or like if you have children, and then it's like, well, now I need somebody to like babysit them while I take this opportunity to like work for free. And you know what I mean? There's just a lot involved with that you can't just not acknowledge. So I was lucky when again, my parents like helped me a lot. And when I was in Arizona, I was able to save up some money with, some things going on. And so when I came to New York, a lot of it was just like burning it, because you can't just like be in New York not getting paid for a long time without like support and safety nets and all this stuff. So that's part of it. And so, how do you tell somebody like a young person who like wants to get into it, like, well, just do it, just work for free. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, you can't not, that doesn't always work, but say like work for free when you can work for free, or, maybe find a studio that, I don't know, the hours are better, or like, I don't know of any studios that pay their interns, but maybe something like that exists. Or, I've had students too, that when they graduate, they just started their own studio, they had a space. When we're able to build it out themselves. That's pretty cool, because then you are the boss. You're the boss, but you're also the engineer and you're the intern. You know, so it's a lot of work. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer. I think it's good to value yourself and not get taken advantage of.
Sure.
But at the same time, like a lot of the opportunities that I received were because I was kind of down to do things for free. And I think if you're always thinking about like, well, what are you going to pay me? And like, is it my rate? I think you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff if you can afford to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, right? The last thing anybody needs to do is really put themselves in a position where they can't take care of themselves, because we all have to find a way to keep our lights on, whatever those happen to be. And so maybe you can't take every free opportunity that comes across, but to also not automatically ignore everything that comes across your inbox or your desk because it's not paid up front.
I don't know if I should put this out there, but I still occasionally do free gigs. So maybe part of putting yourself in a position to do free gigs is taking on another job. Or like if you have a job, even if it's not your dream job, it can kind of free up your ability. This sounds like so whack, but it's like it can free up your ability to work for free. So like certain positions where someone's like, do you want to DJ this thing? It doesn't pay. You know what I mean? It's like most people would be like, no. But it's like, if it's a cool opportunity, I end up getting in with people who, you're kind of like doing them a unspoken favor, or like, you just like add a cool event. So like it adds to your like brand value. Like a lot of that stuff is not money. Like the perceived value of you or your brand. Like I think that's really valuable. So if someone's like, oh, this guy's DJing this cool event, he's cool, then to me, that's worth it. But rather than being like, no, pay me this much per hour and blah, 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 and I get paid. And you know what I'm saying? Like, cause you can't always buy that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just
not
like
to mention
the perception.
And the opportunity for you to develop relationships in those spaces as well. Right.
Yeah.
And you never know what it can lead to. In a way, it's related to what we were saying before about, putting your music on Spotify in and of itself isn't going to pay you a lot of money, but it does provide you like a point of connection to meet other people and through the thing that you want to be known for. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the same. I guess it comes full circle. Putting your music on Spotify is like effectively in the beginning, like working for free, right? Because it's like they barely pay you anything. But once that algorithm starts snowballing, then you start getting some money coming in. I think it's worth it.
And then I guess, man, in terms of, with your professor hat on, what are those things that you try to encourage up and coming producers to study and to be aware of just from a technical perspective to be solid producers?
The thing that I'm like often surprised by is like how little music some people are listening to outside of what they like. So it's like if I just like this one thing and I only listen to that one thing.
Wow, I love that, man.
It's weird. It's like, so one of my homework assignments will be like album of the week. And kind of go back and forth. Like certain weeks I'll pick it. And like, it's like, how easy is that? It's just like, just listen. Yeah. Just jot down some ideas. We'll talk about it next week, get some conversation going. Not everybody does that. And then still it's like, so I'll pick like Nirvana's Nevermind. Or like Miles Davis or Marvin Gaye or like, it's not always classic. Sometimes it'll be just like ones that I really like Solange, A Seat at the Table is like one of my favorite albums. And I think it's really impactful. And so like, that's constantly one. Dilla's Donuts is always one. Other times it'll just be like some hipster stuff that like I dig, like Animal Collective or like Neutral Milk Hotel. Oh, one time I did Neutral Milk Hotel and pretty much everybody hated it. And one person dug it. She it like clicked with her and she was like, this is really cool, blah, blah, blah. Everybody else was like, I couldn't even make it through. And it's that's such like a loved album,
Yeah.
And even just personally, that's like, I love that album. But there's somebody playing like The Saw, and there's like an 8-minute song on there. And but even just like, like not everybody's heard like Wu-Tang or the Beatles or, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, where it's like, how have you not heard this? And it's just like, oh, it's old or it's not really relevant.
Yeah.
And I kind of get that. I mean, I know when I was young, there's certain stuff I just was not interested in listening to, but I was still listening to like old soul music, that was beyond my time.
Sure.
Like music from the 70s. I wasn't alive, like living through it. So I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of that where people just like don't want to check out like old stuff or other genres. Another one too is like I have a lesson on like dissonance and distortion and stuff that's like kind of hard to listen to or like challenging to the listener, either like harmonically or just like mix master wise or even just like arrange like something like JPEG Mafia or Death Grips or just certain types of metal. Where it's like kind of abrasive if you're not used to that.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, like I really dig that. Like when something is like, I don't want to say irritating, but like a little grating or like there's a challenge to get into it. And if you can get into it, it feels like, to me, it feels like rewarding almost like to get it. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's like super pretentious.
Well, I mean, honestly, man, it's funny you say that. I sort of have this like very like unproven theory, but that a lot of taste is sort of about, and like enjoyment of music is like familiarity. And so maybe if you don't like something, it's super outside of your normal range maybe. And I think it's funny because I don't do this as much as I used to, but when I was younger, I definitely would force myself to listen to stuff over and over again if I didn't like it. And I'd be like, why don't I like this? And then now in some cases it's stuff that I like. And so I don't know if it's sort of, I wonder if that's something that, you know, comes into play. It's just like getting used to something that's different, like sort of like a new food or something, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, but you are a successful music producer. So it's like, what was the first step being like, I'm the kind of person who's going to challenge myself, you know, and like you forcing yourself to listen to that, like probably echoes other approaches that you have, you know, or like willing, just like being willing to like try new stuff or like force yourself to learn or like force yourself to appreciate, I guess maybe is a better word.
Yeah, I think just being a student of it is so valuable, which I feel like, and just being, you don't have to like listen to Death Grips all the time. You don't have to be a fan necessarily, but sort of like learning to listen to it as somebody who makes music is really valuable, you know? And I think that's a cool thing to remind people of. And I appreciate you reminding me of it right now, honestly. It's a different approach and perspective to listening to music. And if you make music, it's just an invaluable and important thing, because even if you can't articulate it, I do believe that it finds its way kind of into what you do somehow.
I also feel like it scratches this itch of, you know, when you hear a song, especially stuff on the radio, and you say like, well, I could have made this, you know, like it's so simple. I could have made this. Like, you know, there's a whole thing you can unpack about that. But when I hear something that it's like, I know I could not have made it, that scratches like a certain itch for me. So when I listen to things like, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but like I know certain jazz records or certain like metal albums where it's like beyond my ability. There's something cool, you know. Yeah. It's like it's the opposite of I could have made this, and so it's like, you know, you ever like listen to a beat and you can see it in your head, and you're like, all right, well, I can see these MIDI clips and the drums, and like I can tell it's going to change, but when you listen to other things, it's like, oh man, I can't even make sense of what I'm hearing. Like certain like when Flying Lotus and Thundercat are together, you know, like that kind of stuff where it's just like, man, this is insane. I can't like visualize it, or I'm not even following the chords. Or I think for me, and you know, I don't have like incredible music theory, but like when it goes beyond what I know, it becomes this different thing. And I can listen to it strictly, like not strictly, but mostly as a fan of music, because it's not something that I like have the understanding to like dissect as a producer. You know?
Yeah, and maybe it's hard to turn off it's hard to turn off that producer brain when you're listening to the stuff that feels
but
like.
But when I don't have it, you know, it's like beyond my abilities, then I can turn it off, because it's like I don't even know how to assess what I'm listening to. So like certain like math rock, you know, stuff like that, where it's just like the time signature just like keeps changing in a way that like I'm not even going to try to count it, you know, just like let it kind of wash over. Like there's something satisfying about that, I think.
Anything else that you try to have the students do that you feel like is helpful as foundationally as a producer?
Yeah, I think like ear training, like no matter what element or what aspect of music production you're into, ear training will just like always make you better. And I don't know that you could ever do enough ear training, you know, like whether it's like musical kind of harmonic, you know, interval kind of ear training, or training for frequencies. So I've been doing that a little bit. There's like a program called Golden Ears. The people back in the day like would use this program, but you can just kind of do it yourself. Like I had a bunch of tracks and then routed them to different like auxiliary tracks, and I would have like a pretty significant boost, like 12 dB or 18 dB. I think like the go-to ones are usually like 30, 60, 125, 250, 500, 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K. And then so you can just, and this is maybe too much information, but all those audio tracks they're all being routed to all of the aux tracks.
Gotcha.
And so when you solo like the 8K, right, it travels through, and then you can hear it with this like 18 dB boost at 8K. And when you unsolo that and then solo the 250, right, you're still hearing the same path, but being routed to the 250. So you can kind of test. I guess you could close your eyes and click around, but it's easier if you're testing somebody else, and then just say like, well, what frequency is being boosted? And I think that stuff's really difficult at first, because you're like, 125, 250, I'm not sure. But then once you get good at it, you can do less of a boost, right? Because then you say like, well, how often are you actually boosting 18 dB?
Yeah.
On like a two track, like your master bus. So you can do a smaller one, and then you can do a cut.
Right.
So you can cut 500 hertz and say like what frequency is being scooped.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. And then it's like, if you think about like, let's say you get really good at those octaves. And so you're good at knowing the difference between 8K and 16K. There's a 8K difference between those two frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So like you could be like, oh, it's higher than 8, but lower than 16. Like could be 9, 10, 11,
Mm-hmm.
12, 13, 14,
Sure.
15. And even within that, it could be like somewhere between 14 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we're talking about like 1,000 hertz difference. Like,
right.
I'm not great at this. I know like where to look, I think, when I'm EQing.
Yeah.
But that kind of like really, really intricate like frequency, like training. Like I have some buddies that are just like incredible at that. Like my friend Nakor, like he masters most of my stuff, like pretty much all of my stuff. And then so I'll like send him something that I think is ready for mastering. And he'll be like, take out 1 dB at like 360 hertz. And I do that and the whole mix just like opens up. And it's just like, man, how did you, you know what I mean? How did you know that? And like, it's a random number. He's not saying like, do a broad scoop at 500 or something like that. It's like this. And one time my buddy, Dan Millis, he's another nasty mastering, and he's the guy who just won a Grammy, another mastering engineer. One time I was at the studio and he was like, hey, can you pop in real quick? I want to get your opinion on something. And he's like, do you like this one where I'm scooping half a dB at like 12K, or this one where I'm scooping half a dB at 13K or something? Like, man, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like you're on such the next level in terms of hearing stuff like that. Like, so that's like one piece of advice would be like, get like those two guys.
Yeah.
If you can't, I would say get somebody like that on your team.
Yeah.
Like even if you're a great mixing engineer, having like a trusty mastering engineer, it's just somebody, it's another like safety net. It's somebody who it's like, I know they're going to hear the things I can't hear, and they're going to, and all the technical stuff and whatever, but like they got my back. You know what I mean? So that's like, even though I like to do a lot of stuff, I'm mixing my own stuff now and whatever, like I still want a trusty mastering engineer, for the ones that are like really important.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I hope
you can use like ozone and all that, but
sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, I hope anybody listening to this that's trying to improve their mixing in their ears goes back and, because that's great. You know what I mean? And it's like, start with something that's more pronounced and just learn to dial it back until you can hear things more subtly. And inevitably you're just gonna, whether you're mixing and mastering your own stuff or sending it to somebody else for mastering, you're just going to be in a better position.
And there's apps too. There's like, I think Audio Tones is one where like it'll test you. It'll give you a boost and it'll say what frequency. So if you want to get just straight into like the testing part.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe $5, but like, that's totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to kind of really, really train.
Yeah. I mean, I think if that's something people can do, just even for like 5 or 10 minutes a day, just uninterrupted, that can over time really build up some ear training. That's really cool. Also, man, I guess I would like to get into a little bit, walk us through your process a little bit when you're making beats. Like, where do you typically start? Is it drums? Is it a melody? Is it neither of those things? How do you know when you're done?
Yeah, I think for me, like, so I play a little guitar, I play like a little keys, but nothing like significant. Like the guitarist and piano players around me are all like so much better than I am, that it's like, that's not usually where I feel like I'm going to shine. But I think like one of my strengths is sample chopping and rearranging and manipulating. So that's something I've been like tending to focus on recently. And I like worked out my own like weird little method of getting on my like strange chops. So yeah, a lot of times I'll start with samples, or sometimes like drums if they're going to be like unusual drums. I guess like whatever is going to be the more like interesting element, maybe try to start with that and then work things around that. So like if the drums are like intentionally offbeat a little bit, maybe I'll start with that and then make things fit that.
So do you intentionally approach a beat kind of being like, this is going to be the most important element in this beat? When you start, you're like, the most important part of this is going to be the drums or the sample?
Not really. I mean, when just for me personally, like when I'm starting something new, I usually don't have an idea. It's just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. You know, whereas like when you're like when I would play in bands and stuff, like by the time we got to the studio, like those songs are all worked out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like we know exactly. But when I'm making beats, it's like, let me just and I like make beats when I am just chilling. You know, so it's not like I have this idea I got to get down. It's just like, I'm sitting in front of, you know, I've got like YouTube playing something, like I'll just pull up Ableton. And like most of the time, I mean, I put out a lot of music, but that's like such a small percentage of like the stuff that I'm even bouncing out of Ableton, which is such a small percentage of the stuff that I'm even just hitting save and never opening again, and then there's like a portion that I've just never hit save. You know, it'll be like, I make something work on it. And I'm like, I don't even really like this, you know, so I'll just like delete it. So yeah, so I don't really have like you kind of never know what's going to happen. I mean, you can have an intention. You'd be like, I'm going to make a such and such type beat. Or if I'm working on an album and I'm like, you know, I'm missing a track that feels like such and such, you know?
Yeah.
And in terms of it being done, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's never like really clear when it's done. You know, it's like a painting or something. It's like, when is a painting done? So you could mix something for the rest of your life if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at some point you just got to put it out, you know, maybe just giving yourself a deadline. Or what I like to do is like, I'm like constantly bouncing out stuff that I'm working on. And then I still use like iTunes playlists. I don't know if people do that, but it's like all my iTunes playlists are just like my own like works in progress.
Gotcha.
And so I'll listen to those bounces as like an album and be like, does this make sense? Does this flow right or whatever? And like, I like to listen to my works in progress, not in the session. You know, like I don't want to see the parts. I don't want to see the automation. So like I'll bounce it, walk around, listen to it. Or like, sometimes I'll just play it and like turn my head away from my computer even just to be like, just to try to, like we were talking about before, like try to access that part of your brain where you're just like a fan of music or a listener and see if anything's sticking out, you know, and then go back in and kind of tweak it. And I guess it's just a matter of like, if you can listen to it without something sticking out as like a thing to fix, then I would say it's ready.
Your process is too interesting just in how you're like constantly making, like you don't have, okay, this is my time in the studio and I'm going to go make beats right now. It sounds like you just kind of are always down to open up Ableton and see what happens. And I guess maybe that's part of it, but I'm curious because, you know, especially when you include all the aliases that you have too, you release music at a pretty consistent and high rate. And so I think maybe giving a little bit of insight into how you get there. Because I think there's a lot of people who have a ton of beats that are unfinished sitting on their computer. And in lieu of like opening it up and, you know, moving it to completion and putting it out on streaming or wherever they would want to put it out, they just kind of open a new blank project.
I know that some people are like that. I have a student right now who's an incredible producer. Like his beats are so good. And he's always just like, yeah, I don't know if I want to put it out. You know, and it's like, what are you doing? Like if I made that beat, that would be the next single, you know, but like some people just, I don't know, like they feel that way. But for me, it's like, let's just put it out, you know? And like, so I have like a ton of projects too. Like if anything, I don't have enough. It's just like the release times, you know? So that's part of why like the aliases are helpful, just to kind of, just to get it all out. But also too, like I started playing more guitar again. I kind of didn't really play guitar for like years because it just like wasn't really what I was working on. And so recently I kind of got back into listening to more guitar-based music and some like emo and metal and stuff like that. So I started playing guitar again, and then I was like, well, let me record this idea, and ended up recording like 5 ideas. And so I was like, oh man, this is like a little EP of like kind of like a almost like Midwest emo, but not super intricate, you know, just kind of like simplified. And then one of them was like kind of left. I was like, well, this feels too like almost like Death from Above, that kind of like rock. So I was like, well, this one doesn't make sense. So I made another playlist and I put it on there. And then I was like, well, maybe I could make more like that. And ended up making like 5 more ideas for that. So it's like, so from just like making the rock stuff, now I have these 2 EPs that don't sound like each other. Like maybe those are 2 more aliases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The stuff that I'm making is not very complicated. So I'm able to work like very quickly. So I don't know. I think like if you can figure out what's, not you, but for whoever is looking for advice, if you know like what's slowing you down, maybe it's bass lines or something, then like work with a good bassist. You know what I mean? Like I know like I can play a little bass, I can put low end in a song. It's not that interesting, but I could hit up Chris, who's like, I mean, he's nasty at everything, but like he's nasty, bass player, or like, and guitarist and piano player and, you know, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he's dope.
So like on my album I'm working on, like there's a bunch of like, he's playing bass on some of it. This guy, Andre, who's nasty, another multi-instrumentalist, he's playing bass. Cartoons is playing bass. So it's like, these guys are way better than I am. So why not like loop them in? You know, if that's like what's going to keep the ball rolling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Like if you know what's slowing you down. And so for the like rock stuff, I can't sing. So that's like that's the bottleneck. Like I want to put vocals on this. I can't sing. So it's like just trying to find somebody. Once you find that, then it's like, cool, put that out, do the next thing.
That's cool, man.
I like to move very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like how you have like, I don't know, when a new kind of sound or idea comes up, it seems like you just make space for it. You know, you just like, all right, I need a new iTunes playlist for this now. And you don't. And I think,
exactly.
Right. Instead of, which I think is, you know, I don't think it's uncommon for people to kind of stumble upon a new sound and then sort of like mentally just like kind of smother it or ignore it because like, well, it doesn't fit into this thing that I already had in mind. And so I think that expansive, like, and making room for that is that's a really cool kind of way to come at it. And I think a lot of us can benefit from that. And that's really, really cool, man. And also, I think the sense of like having to do everything yourself, you know, you don't have to do everything yourself. If there's, you know, you expand the possibilities in your music. If you're like, oh, well, you know, maybe this is going to be more interesting if I have somebody else play bass on this or have somebody else play guitar on this and not have, I think because maybe we do live in this age of there are some like super producers and there's this sense of like, you need to do everything yourself. And if you don't, that there's somehow, I don't know, like maybe it takes away from the credibility or quality of your music, you know? And I definitely am with you on that. It's like, no, if you have something in your head and you can't get there on your own, you know, it's the collaboration is amazing. Not to mention that you can learn to become a better player through collaborating and better producer as well. So that's really, really cool, man.
I agree. And I should be like doing that, but it's just like, if I know somebody's nasty, you know, then it's like, well, I'll never like be at their level. So I just like keep like looping them back in. And you'll find like certain people that you just work really well with, or you work really quickly with. You know what I mean? And I think like just making your team strong. And if there's somebody who you worked with, but like maybe you didn't vibe with them, you know, that's cool. Like you can still like, you know what I mean? Like you can have like, I have some collaborations where it's just slow, you know, and that's okay. And so like, that's not my main thing because that would drive me crazy if like my main thing was slow.
Right.
Just because like I just happen to work very quickly, you know, like, and I'm probably, you know, missing a lot of detail and all this stuff. But like for me, it's like, I'm working quickly. So the stuff that is slow, it'll just happen when it happens, you know, and I'm not like cutting it off and I don't want to not do it. I think that's another thing too, is like one of the reasons why I have so many projects is because there's a lot of collaboration. So like the vocalists that I work with, like they're dope vocalists, you know, they're people who are doing big things and are busy. So I'm kind of on their schedule a little bit. You know what I mean? So if it takes them 6 months to send me a part back, in those 6 months, like think about how many new things started cooking up, you know? So it's
absolutely.
like having a lot of projects at the same time, like lets you like not be so stressed at how long something's taking. I have like an album with all vocalists on it. I have a instrumental kind of beat tape. I have a instrumental Lake Sanford kind of chill EP, a collab EP with a friend of mine, and then like this rock stuff. So, you know, maybe 6 or 7 things in the works. So it's like whatever kind of gets done will be the next one that comes out. And if the others like are taking a long time, like they'll come out when they come out, you know?
Yeah, like there's a bunch of trains on different tracks moving at different speeds, you know, but they're all going to get there.
Yeah. It just takes the like stress off a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's part of how you have so much stuff coming out all the time, is that you have all these separate kind of trains running.
Yeah.
Right on.
And then I don't have to be this guy that's like, hey man, send me your parts.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you get to be a little more chill. I'm just like, yeah, whenever you get time. Meanwhile, I'm like, internally, I'm like, send me.
Where is
parts,
that part?
Yeah. But then, you know, it keeps the vibe more chill, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Are any of these projects coming out soon, or anything you want to talk about kind of in more detail?
I mean, I'm pretty excited about the next Jacuzzi album. But I don't know like when or how it's going to come out. Other than that, so I like change my mind so quickly. Like I'll be like, oh, such and such is the next thing. Here's how I'm going to do it. And then a couple of days later, I'm like, no, that's not it. It's this other thing, you know? And so that's, you know, it's nice being kind of like solo and free to move it however you want. But at the same time, it's hard to like know if an idea is good or not. So I just kind of like run with something and then change my mind and run with that. So now the latest I'm thinking is take that beat tape I was talking about and maybe deconstructing it as just singles.
Oh, cool.
So just drop in those, because, you know, like I was talking about, like the pitching for Spotify editorial and all that. So it kind of like doesn't make sense to drop 10 songs and pitch one of them.
Yeah.
So just break them up into singles, and then like every couple of weeks just drop that. And then if anything, like if you use the same distributor and the same ISRC codes, at the end you could put out an album that has all those songs and the stats still translate, and there's the same distributors collecting for you. So because I like to think in terms of projects, you know, I've got the iTunes playlist. So it's like I've been looking at this as an album for like 6 months to a year. So it's like I want it to be an album. Whereas all the music marketing people will tell you like, don't drop albums, drop singles. It's a singles market. So I think by dropping singles, let's say you drop 9 out of the 10, then what you could do is drop a 10-track album that has those 9 plus a new one, and then pitch that new one. So that this way, all 10 tracks have been pitched and it exists as an album. So I think it's like a new, like if somebody had done that back in, you know, the 90s, early 2000s, like that would have been so whack, you know, and like the day the album comes out, you'd be like, we heard all this already. This is not, you know, like when you go to Sam Goody to buy the CD, you know, it's like, why would I buy this? This is old. But like that model is so gone. You know what I mean? Like unless you're, you know, Beyonce, Drake, Taylor Swift, like people don't care about like the day your album comes out and like sales and, you know, did it live up to blah, blah, blah. Like who cares? Like, if you're still on your way up, kind of getting people's attention, like, so I think that's where I'm at right now. I'll see if it changes by like tomorrow, but I think I'm going to like do like all singles and then drop the album of like previously released stuff. Just so like if somebody finds out about it after that point, they can click on the one album and hear it as a project. But leading up to that point, like each one gets the attention that, you know, that it deserves, or give it its fair shot at landing on a playlist or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, I appreciate you sharing all that too. Yeah, I mean, and I hope, again, anybody who's planning to put out music, I hope you go back and listen to this, because that's really cool stuff to think about in terms of strategy and just functional stuff. And
you know, here's one more nugget is this is what people do now. And I'm sure you've like seen this too, but like, so people, especially if you are a band or a producer and you don't have listed features, it becomes a lot easier. So if it's just one artist, so you drop the single, and then when you drop the second single, you know, like a month or however long later, track 2 is the first single.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then when you drop the third single, it's that one. Track 2 is the second single. Track 3 is the first single. And so you just kind of keep re-releasing and re-releasing and re-releasing. And just like, because if you, it's all about clicks, right? Like I want to get somebody to click on my song. If they click on it on the third release, but they don't click away from it, it's going to play track 2 and track 1. And so you get more streams, right? I mean, you get like a 1 extra stream per song, but also it's another time somebody's heard that song, you know, and you were talking about like people kind of like what they're familiar with or like repetition. So like if you just kind of keep getting them to hear that same song, it might kind of like, you know, earworm its way in.
Yeah.
And then whenever you drop the album, as long as all your ISRC codes are the same, like that song already, you know, you drop an album that day, it has 10,000 plays because of the previous singles all count towards that album. So I think a lot of people have been doing that over the past like year or two, but I think that that's like a smart,
interesting
kind of.
I didn't realize you could have the same ISRC
don't,
across all songs like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, across like the same. So it's like your song as the single and then that song on your album.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, very cool.
Because otherwise, like if they're different, then they're going to be 2 separate ones. And then your top 5 might have like 2 versions of the same song. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, again, that's a great nugget for everybody in the producer world trying to put their music out. And I think the last couple of things I want to do is let's tell everybody where they can find you, where you'd like to be found, handles, platforms, etc. And then I want to get into some questions that are a little like really short answers and don't think too hard about them, you know, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. I mean, I use Instagram. That's like pretty much it. I have a TikTok that I like don't really use, even though everybody says you have to use it. But yeah, at Jacuzzi Jefferson on Instagram. And if you want to shoot me an email, it's just jacuzzijefferson@gmail.com.
Oh, watch out for that inbox now, man.
Yeah, right. It's going to be like ways to get more Spotify streams. That's like what my inbox is. It's just all that. And it's like, man, what is this? This is, you know, it's one more thing just because I thought about this is there was a minute, I don't know if people are doing this as much anymore, but they'll be like, you know, we'll get your song in such and such playlist. But let's say like you do that and you work with somebody who puts you on these like, you know, playlists with a lot of fluff, or let's say it's like Ed Sheeran, Ariana Grande, Jacuzzi Jefferson, you know, something like that, like top hits of whatever. It's like, if people listen to that playlist, they're going to skip your song. Like if you're looking for Ed Sheeran and Ariana Grande, like you're going to skip Jacuzzi Jefferson. They don't like that kind of stuff. So I think sometimes those services that are like, we'll get you on a such and such playlist, like can actually be a disservice. You know, you're teaching the algorithm that people skip you. So I would be cautious about that kind of thing. You know, when you get the emails.
That's a little gem. I think that's great, man, to remind people that like it's tempting, you know, and you love the idea of being out there, but you got to keep in mind sort of the medium, you know, and where all this exists and how it works. And so, yeah, man, again, appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, man,
I think the best thing you could do is just like if everybody in like the producer community makes their own playlists and puts their own, like if I make a playlist and I put you on it and me on it and Nothing New and Radicule and like Jazz Enough and just like all these like homies, you know, that like actually make sense together, and everybody else is also doing the same thing. I think then you can kind of like glue them together in a way that the algorithm realizes like what's up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about the algorithm.
Yeah, and it's a good way for like the community to help other people working on similar things, you know. So it's a nice way. It's kind of a cool way and a lightweight way to be able to collaborate and let people know you're supporting them. And I really like that as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
So with that, man, we'll jump into these quick hits and go follow this man on all the places, Instagram and his inactive TikTok, I guess. You've already said this, but we'll go ahead and say it just in case anybody missed it. Which DAW do you use?
I use Ableton for production. For like kind of big recording stuff, I use Pro Tools, and I used to dump Ableton into Pro Tools for like mixing. But these days I'm just straight up in Ableton.
Right on. Go-to sound or instrument?
I just got Keyscape. I know I was like very late to the game. Also, I've been really digging a lot of contact instruments. Just kind of like odd, anything that's like odd and kind of strange sounding. Yeah, those two. Oh, and then this one, I don't even know how to say it. It's like Remina or something like that. WREMENA.
Okay.
And there's like they have this like sampled like 1970s P bass. Just as like, one shot you played across the keyboard.
Is that what you were showing me when we were in New York? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, dude. Yeah, you have to get that from me. I want to look that one up again. Yeah, that's a cool plugin.
Man, that one was like $30.
Yeah, that's really dope. It was like cool interface cheap. And stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I dig it. And that's one where I was like, I was on Instagram stories and it came up as an ad. And I was like, all right, I clicked on it like from the stories and just like purchased it through that. And I was like, and then we just went back to stories, it's like, because it's like $30.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been using that one a lot.
Yeah, I will also say, cool. Man, that was, I was really, because I just love P-Bass in general. And I was like, damn, this sounds really good. I guess it's sort of related, but go-to plugin, maybe that's not like an instrument.
These days, I like the Pro Q3 from FabFilter for EQing.
Yeah.
I like the Good Hertz, the Wolf compressor. That one I'm just doing like in parallel, basically, like just a tiny amount.
Yeah.
I like their mid-side too. That one's pretty good. I just bought Soothe too. I know I was like kind of late to the game on that one, but that one's been cool. That one's just for like that last like 2%, on mixing.
Absolutely.
And then like, don't sleep on the stock Ableton. They've got some really good stuff.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I love, Ableton plugins are great. Favorite piece
I think Logic stock plugins are good too.
Yeah.
Like Logic stock compressors and some of their more like modulation stuff.
Yeah, they have a great collection of compressors in Logic. I haven't used Logic in a minute, but it's crazy the number of compressors. That's something I wish Ableton did have more of. It's just kind of more variety, the compressors. And then favorite piece of gear, physical.
I don't have anything like crazy. The newest I got was, I just bought this baritone guitar.
Oh, dope.
Because
I love the seafoam green.
Yeah, and it's just right. It only came in two colors. It was like sunburst and then this guy. So I thought this was cool.
Yeah, that's a little of that Blink 182 right
so
there.
Yeah. Right? But I've got it tuned down to like B standard.
Oh wow.
And then on top of that, I dropped. I guess you would call it like drop A. Gotcha. So it's like A.
Yeah, I've never messed with either of those tunings.
Well, so it's just like I think 5 frets lower than a guitar,
gotcha. Okay.
but still the same like tuning.
Gotcha.
Like the same like relative tuning.
Yeah, gotcha.
Just you can get some like really rich kind of low end, and I haven't been able to like dial in the tone just yet in terms of like the virtual amps that I'm using. Yeah, man, that's a whole rabbit hole. Now I'm like watching all these if you buy the like different people's presets for their amps, and like it can get pretty expensive. But
shout to I'm the most that's the for the record, everybody's holding the guitar with one hand, so he's also in the gym as well. 3 producers you think everybody should listen to, and you can't say Dilla or Madlib.
Oh man, only 3?
Only 3. It's got to be the podium.
Oh my goodness, and you can't say Dilla or Madlib. Stolen Drums.
Boom.
Our mutual friend.
There you go. Shout out to Stolen Drums, Sidechain.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, dude, really.
Man, now it's like I just want to shout out the homies,
Yeah.
3. I'm trying to pick like some like maybe that people don't know about. I mean, people know about drums, but like I only got 2 spots left. I like don't want to answer wrong because later I'll be like showering like a week from now, and I'll just be like, oh, I didn't say so and so.
If you need more than 3, you can have it. I don't want to put you through agony, man.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, check out my guy Chris Mazzuera. He just dropped an album, and it's nasty, and that's my dude. I think a lot of people like in the New York beat scene like are pretty dope.
Yeah.
So like Nothing New and Radicule and Chef Dog, Lake, Designer Dreams, like Cryptic One. I mean, he's another one of our mutual friends.
Yeah. Absolutely. Shout to Crip.
There's just like too many, like I don't know. I'll have to see because I know there's like people like whenever I'm DJing, I feel like I end up playing like the same stuff.
Yeah.
And then being like, man, this person's nasty. Like more people should know about this. I'll think of it, and then there'll be like some supplementary content where I just list like 200 people that I wish I had shouted out.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, go check all those people out. Someone else you think I should talk to on this podcast?
I mean, Crip would be cool. He's somebody who just like very knowledgeable, very down to share information. That's the thing, is like, I mean, everybody's kind of got their own thing, but it's like, how down are you to like share that? Like, is this like a secret that you're holding on to?
No, man, I can agree more. He's super open and just dope.
Yeah. And he knows, like, I mean, obviously he knows music, but he knows like live music and running a label and selling physical stuff and Facebook ads and, that kind of stuff, where it's like, he knows a lot about a lot. So I think he would be a good
man, person. I agree. Yeah, he's definitely on my mind for sure. So I'm hoping we'll have him on here before too long. And
you should get drums on here too.
I would love to have drums on here. Yeah, man. I mean, he's shared so much already, and it's just, and obviously just an incredible producer as well. And his sound has just evolved so much from the time that I've discovered him to now, in terms of like what he's making and how he makes it. It's made.
Yeah, he seems to, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but he seems to be somebody who's just like always curious, man. He's not just like, he's like, could have gotten comfortable a long time ago and just been like, all right, I figured out how to make dope beats.
Yeah.
But it's just like always evolving, and like new gear and new workflows and new plugins and new hardware, and learning about the like really technical, nerdy stuff, but while still keeping like, I don't know, he's the man. Shout out to him.
Man. I couldn't agree more. I really feel like he definitely embraces that kind of beginner's mindset and that like forever student kind of thing. He's just, as soon as he learns something, he's trying to build on it. And that's really cool. And as you mentioned, man, he just shares it too, which is amazing,
And you should talk to my guy, Kyle, too, because he's another person who's like, great musician, but like also like a lot of the stuff that I've learned about streaming and sync and that kind of like online networking stuff, like a lot of that has been through him. And he's somebody who is just down to like share information.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Yeah, I would love to meet Kyle. Cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, man, we're almost there. 2 more. Your favorite movie of all time?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh wow, that's a jam. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, that one is like it's sad. I like to feel sad. We don't have to unpack that. I think it's just like visually really cool, and the music is like some of my favorite music. John Bryan did that.
Oh, okay. Man, when Jay Electronica did that Eternal Sunshine, I lost my mind the first time I heard that. It's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, man. This might be a hot take. Jay Electronica is like one of my top 5 favorite rappers.
Well, I love him too, man. Yeah.
People get mad. They're like, oh, he only has the one album, blah, blah, blah. But like that whole Eternal Sunshine thing. And then if you're looking for it, there's a lot of music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've gotten to see him live a couple of times. He was incredible, man. All right.
Yeah. I only saw him live once, but it was a really good show.
Yeah, man. Tons of energy. I mean, he can definitely, and this was before, the album came out. So, but yeah, man, he could keep a crowd entertained with the small catalog he had out at the time, All right, last question, man. If you were to do one thing that would break the internet, what would it be?
I don't think I want to break the internet. I like to be comfortable, So if I could just kind of like stay comfortable, like the people who know me, but the people who don't know me wouldn't recognize me, that would be my best case scenario.
Gotcha.
I don't think I'm looking to like stir things up in a way where all of a sudden I'm on too many people's radar. So
gotcha.
I think the internet's cool. I like to keep it working, I don't want to mess with that.
The pacifist.
So I don't know. I would say, I'm trying to not break the internet.
Right on. Well, man, thank you so much for the
How about
time,
you? How would you break the internet?
Wow. How would I break the internet? I would probably accidentally trip over the main line that is the source of the internet.
Just unplug it.
Yeah. Trying to plug in my guitar, and I would accidentally kick out that cord probably. This was super fun, man. Thank you so much. Like, I know that I'm gonna go back and listen to this and take some notes. You shared a lot of just really cool practical information, from releasing music, from making music, to just listening to music and all around, man. So thank you so much for the time. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
I appreciate you having me on here, man.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do it again. We'll do it again.
Definitely. Anytime.
Yeah. And yeah, go follow this man at Jacuzzi Jefferson. Stream him several times on repeat. Don't pause it after 10 seconds.
Add it to a playlist.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I'll click, like I'll need to check out something on my own song. So I'll like listen to it and get whatever I needed to know. And then it's like, oh, well, now I don't want to turn it off because it's like, I don't want to mess up the
I don't want this going on the permanent record of this song.
Yeah, exactly. But if you do that too often, then at the end of the year, Spotify will be like, you know, you're your own top artist. You know, when you do the Wrapped. So you can't be listening to your own music too much. So
yeah, you need to create an alias account just to listen to your own music, right?
That's maybe the best hack. Just each alias project for releasing music has its own alias for listening to the other projects.
Yeah, you need a Bitcoin mine just to listen to your catalog.
I bet you could figure that out.
Well, maybe we'll get to
that's how I'll break the internet.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll break the internet by trying to
juice up your streams
with the streams. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, go follow this man and listen to his music so he doesn't have to do that. At Jacuzzi Jefferson, everybody, and we will see you again soon. Thank you for listening. Peace.
I appreciate you.
Likewise.
That's it for this episode of ProducerHead. I appreciate you coming through and being a part of it. My hope is that it helps you unlock a bit more creativity and find progress in a way that matters to you. Before we go, there are 2 simple and zero-cost ways to support the ProducerHead podcast. 1, tap in and subscribe or follow wherever you're listening, whether it be Spotify or Apple. 2, if you haven't already, drop a review on Apple or Spotify. Maybe both if you're feeling it. The feedback is appreciated and helps me continue to do what's working while improving along the way. Finally, let's stay connected. I regularly share ideas that help me develop my creative process, along with music recommendations and even give away free music and sample packs. Head to torubeat.com, torubeat.com, and sign up to receive all of these things and stay up on all things ProducerHead. You can also stay connected with me and the podcast at torubeat, TORUBEAT, on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Again, for real, thank you so much for being here with me, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode of ProducerHead. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. Peace.